right. So, CAD and Cars, episode 3. We are on location today in Mike Day's garage.
Yes.
Today we're going to talk about engine swap.
Car swap.
Car swap? Engine swap. I've been saying car swap. It's an engine swap.
Swaps. Yeah. Engine swaps in general.
But
because there's one next to us here, we figured
we'll start off with
a good
that.
setting for it.
Yeah. So tell us about that.
So this is a 95 BMW 525 that I've had for a very long time. This will be its third motor, so second engine swap since I've had it. It's an LS swap, which everyone's doing these days, but for good reason. So
You have 300-something thousand miles on it, right?
yeah, the car's got 320 something on it. It's been through some stuff, yeah, for sure. There's a lot of things I want to fix that I've done in my younger years that are kind of embarrassing. There's only a few things left that you guys could probably point out. Hopefully I'll fix those by the time it's done. But, yeah.
So mention why, I don't think we talked about this in the previous podcast, but why the drift car essentially came to be. That was like a victim of circumstance, really, right?
Yeah. So I was planning to do an LS swap in this car probably 2 years ago, and I was just slowly collecting pieces because the car still ran fine, and it's way cheaper if you can piece stuff together over time. So I was just kind of waiting for the right deal on a couple things. I grabbed an engine from some guy in Wadsworth, and then I grabbed your blown-up engine, which is still in the basement. I kind of like mix and match to put this engine together. And yeah, so the drift car opportunity came up, so I sort of jumped the gun a little bit and pulled the engine out of this car. It sat down pretty much all last summer just because of that. I could have been driving it, but
You were also busy building a drift
I
car.
was also
so
busy building a drift car.
no time
so
to do anything.
It didn't make much difference. But yeah, that was just kind of victim of circumstance there.
So that's where the M62 that went into the Mark III came from.
Right, which I swapped into that car in 2010. So this was a 525, which had an M50 Vanos motor.
So it's been in there for 9 years.
Right. I put
Used
it in
motor.
with 200,000 miles on it, and
So now it has
that engine has 300,000 miles on it now.
and a lot of questionable beat up time on it.
Pretty much rev limited for 10 years.
I think it's got the magic smoke in it still or something. Like I'm envious of that engine still.
It seems
like,
to do okay.
Yeah. I don't know.
It does respectable dyno numbers. It doesn't smoke it doesn't smoke other than like
Not that I've
it
noticed.
does weird stuff. But
Yeah.
Nope, it works fine.
things been running great. Which those supposedly had an issue with cylinder liners. Like this is after that, but it's right on the cusp because it's an early motor. So they had the Nicosil issue. So the blocks were there's no liners in the engine block. So it's a nickel and silicon blend, and then they acid etch the liner area where the cylinders are going to get bored to like kind of dissolve some of the aluminum so you're left with just the silicon lining. And the high sulfur fuel in America kind of had issues with that, and there were scoring problems, and like they were doing warranty engine stuff at like anything under 100K, they'd replace the motor. So somehow that one's fine.
That always blew my mind coming to the European stuff because I mean BMW. I'm sure they weren't the first, but they had to be one of the first, like for in terms of like large manufacturing to do like not without cylinder liners, do a coating instead of like an iron liner.
Yeah, the first I think was the 928 or
Right,
one of
yeah,
the first.
of
So
course,
that
yeah,
was
that's what I was
earlier.
thinking. But yeah,
those
that-
had issues too. So
it's crazy because yeah, you think like, oh yeah, you know, if it starts smoking or loses compression, yeah, I'll just ram a hone through it and like re-ring it, and you just can't do it. So
Right, you can't do it.
You just run it till death.
yeah, there are places you can like have the thing acid etched again and rebind.
Yeah, that sounds expensive.
Yeah, it's way more expensive than the motor's worth. You pick
What's-
those up for $200.
And what did they replace that coating with after that sulfur problem? I
It was
forget what
Nicosil originally,
Uh-huh.
and then they went to it was Alusil.
Alusil originally.
No,
And
Nicosil
now
was the
it's-
issue, and now they went to Alusil. I'm
I think
mixing the
it's
two up now.
I think Nicosil's the new one.
I thought Nicosil was the issue.
Maybe I don't know, but we know our stuff, you know.
Yeah, I usually know this.
For
I don't care
people-
anymore. That's
Right.
the trouble because it's been fine for so long. Like
Essentially,
something
there's nothing you can do about it anyways, so it doesn't
right. Yeah,
really
you're
matter.
gonna replace a block regardless. So who cares?
So at the end of the day, that car's out of the E34 right now.
Yeah, that
That's in the
motor's
Mark
gone.
III. That's
Kevin always keeping us on tap.
just trying to bring it back.
Yeah, I
in.
know.
Reel it in,
We're
reel it
getting
in.
off on the deep
So
end.
I don't really even know the details of this build. Can you like explain a little further what block it is, what mods are done to it, what the plans are, what drivetrain type of stuff going on.
All right. Yeah, I can go over that. So this
Get
is
ready.
an early LS1, which a lot of people regard as not the best block, just because it's got the big windows through the center, in between like the main caps and stuff, and they're kind of flexier. But it's going to be fine for my power goals.
Aluminum block.
Aluminum block, right? So it's an actual LS for all the puristy people that don't really care. And then it is I honed it quick, put in JE pistons, but they are the stock or 10.2-to-1 compression pistons, not lower compression pistons. And I did the Gen 4 rods, which are a lot stronger than the Gen 3 rods. So it's kind of very budget, bottom end, that should be able to take some boost. This is a turbo setup.
Right. So what was the goal with this thing? Was just basically to make a whole bunch of power, right?
Not a whole bunch, but just like have a really fun street car. I want AC.
600-700 horsepower is a whole bunch of power.
Yeah,
for
it
most
should
people.
be
I mean,
700 pretty easily.
Turbo is the size of a small bowling ball, so
I do question that a little bit. I feel like shooting for low boost and low-ish power for a turbo LS, you probably could have gone smaller. But we'll see.
This
We'll see how
turbo
it
is
goes.
going to be done at 750, from what I'm told.
That seems insane.
It's a huge frame because it's a dinosaur turbo from
Right,
back in
right.
the day, but it's journal bearing and pretty reliable.
about a twin scroll.
But twin scroll, but like the wheels aren't great. Like
I'm very curious to see.
me too, but I've been told not to expect great things out of the turbo.
Can you
Someone I
describe
regard.
how large this turbo is compared to a normal?
It's an S475, so it's a Borg Warner, 75 millimeter compressor, 98 millimeter exducer, I believe, 1.32 AR housing. So like physically, it's enormous.
1.32.
It is.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's about the size of your head.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, for sure. 5-inch inlet, 5-inch outlet. That's massive.
Okay.
So
Just for
That's-
the listeners who
it's
try
right.
to visualize this,
yeah.
Roughly the size of your
the
head.
Yeah, that's a great
it's like
visualization.
I believe it's 50 pounds.
Yeah. It's
So-
It is very heavy.
It's very heavy.
Yeah, I did try and help you when you were positioning that turbo flange. Like hold that out there, even at like arm's length. I couldn't do it for more than a
No.
couple seconds. That's stupid.
Yeah, I
heavy.
went with ratchet straps and stuff across the strut towers
Yeah.
to really dial it in. But yeah, it's a huge, pretty old school turbo, but it should be reliable, and that's really what I'm after here. I don't know, and also because this turbo is a huge frame, if I can fit it now, if I want to upgrade the turbo later, any more modern turbo is going to be more compact than this.
Mhm.
So I'll have plenty of space in the engine bay.
Definitely have the room. It's a good call.
So, aluminum block LS, pistons, Gen 4 rods, some kind of cam. big
I've got the
turbo.
wrong cam in it right now. I might fix that. I've got a very nitrous / NA oriented old thumper cam or something that came in one of the engines I bought.
Oh, I
So-
might be interested in that if you pull it out. Maybe you'll use it for that other one though.
So, mated to that is a T56.
Oh, yes, the T56 has been troublesome so far. But so it's a T56, and that's the trouble with an LS swap. You can't do an LS swap with a manual for cheap. It's
Yeah.
not possible.
What's the going rate for a 6-speed T56? $2,000 now.
$2,000 is about
Yeah.
the lowest.
If
you
it
can get.
works,
if it
it's at
works
least
at all,
$2,000.
it's $2,000.
It's a popular item. Yeah,
Right. Because no other transmission holds up, that bolts up off the shelf. There's T5s. There's a couple people that think they'll hold up, but they don't. Then you can do the CDO9, the 350Z
Yep.
trans,
Yep.
but you have to cut the bell housing off. You have to run this
$700 in an
$700 adapter, and then trans is actually getting more expensive now too.
and the gear ratios are stupid.
Yeah, the ratios suck. You don't have. It's just a single overdrive instead of the double overdrive.
They seem to hold the power for NA stuff. I don't know how they do with turbo stuff. I don't think it's good, but I really hate the idea of cutting off that bell housing and using that adapter because it bolts to the input shaft cover. So
Right.
the bolt diameter where your new bell housing adapter bolts to is super small. I don't know. I hate it.
Everyone seems to run it and it's fine, but yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not into it
I
either.
just- ugh.
And there's really not too many other options. You
It's not
can
an
go
elegant
with.
solution.
No, because these can make so much power so easily with boost, it's really hard to find a manual transmission that holds up. So you can buy a brand new T56 Magnum for under $4,000 or around $4,000.
Which
And
is
then-
kind of crazy considering people pay so much for a used working
Right,
T56.
and then a used old T56 is $2,000. So you
Yeah.
have to meet in the middle somewhere.
Sure.
I bought this, which is a Viper T56, which which is similar, for $200, but from a road racing team that said it's blown up and it's missing pieces. So I dismantled it. Sure enough, it was missing some stuff, and the
this
gears
little
in
saga.
this
was too
saga
funny.
just became. It really reassured me into like you can't get into a T56 for under $2,000. But yeah, so it has some oddball gears because it's a like 06 to 08 Viper trans, which means none of the other gears that are readily available mesh up. I didn't have the input shaft, which wouldn't have worked anyway unless I had it machined. You have to shorten the input shaft from a Viper to LS stuff. So before you know it, I've replaced every gear in the trans, all the synchros, all the shift collars because those are all damaged, and
Here we are.
here we are.
Now it's made up.
I'm in like $2,000 into a $200 transmission, but it's brand new.
Yeah, it's got some
And it
nice
should
parts
be okay.
in it now,
And
though.
it's
So
got nice parts in it. It's all the upgraded items, but didn't save me anything. It
Yeah.
definitely wasted more time.
So that
Probably
kind of goes
worth
down the rabbit hole of what goes into swapping an engine into a car that wasn't originally designed for it. So you have to buy the parts that'll work with the motor, just like the transmission, things like that.
it. Yeah, hopefully. Like,
You
if you're
also-
going to do a swap, you'd buy the engine and trans as a combo. That's how I prefer to do it, but that's not what happened this time.
That's not what always happens, and it's kind of hard to find unless you buy a parts car or something.
Right.
It's easier to find engines and transmissions separate, as far as I've seen at least. But there's a lot of other things that go into the swap,
Right.
like making motor mounts.
Right. So motor mounts are
Your
probably
routing.
one of the most straightforward, simple things you end up doing, really.
Yeah,
And it
sure.
seems like a big deal initially, but it's just because it's the first step. So, like, position the engine in the engine bay where you want it. There's a lot of kits out there for a couple different things. Definitely not a kit for this car. But it's kind of like measuring your angle of the engine and trans, so your drive line angle is correct. Then getting in the engine bay where you want. Pretty much no engine is centered in the engine bay. They're always offset to the passenger side a little bit. At least on left-hand drive cars. Maybe not on right-hand drive cars, but I assume that's the only reason because they don't care about weight distribution in like a factory application.
So motor mounts are easy.
It's whatever's
right?
cheaper.
Wherever you
Motor
go put
mounts
the
are
engine is fine.
simple. It's not, you spend some time with the tape measure, but yeah.
What's the like top 3 things that are the biggest pain and cost the most money? Are we talking like steering shaft stuff? Is it the drive shaft?
nickel and dime,
It
man.
nickel and dimes you.
Yeah.
That's the trouble. Is it like it's never a big ticket item, but before you know it, like doing power steering lines and all the other accessories, you're in like $800 into AN fittings somehow.
Right, and you
It-
don't
it
wanna
always
buy-
happens.
You don't want to buy some crappy, you're making something custom now, so you don't want to buy just go to the junkyard and buy some power steering lines or hook up some other type of power steering system from some car. You basically just want to revamp it from stage 1 so you don't have to redo it later down the line.
I haven't always done that, but I mean, either way, it's tricky.
That could add up more.
Yeah, it could definitely add up more.
You can go
So-
the budget route, but
So I'm gonna jump in here and say that I've actually like figured this out. The first time around on the Miata swap, which we'll talk about later. We'll talk about that when we go to my garage, I guess. But I actually had a spreadsheet and kept track of everything that I spent, thinking I could do this definitely on a budget. So I made everything. I didn't buy anything, like any swap parts, right? So obviously the engine transmission I got from a donor and all that. And so like I modified the stock subframe, welded that up with some like scrap steel I had laying around.
okay, so we're not counting like
So
time
coilovers
is
or-
time is
No.
gone.
You're talking
No,
strictly
So
swap
this is
parts.
all my labor, so not counting that, and all just little parts that I needed. Like I in the spreadsheet I counted like the steel that I had to go buy to make a couple mounts and like things like that. And this was like I feel like the cheapest I could do an LS swap, and before you know it, it was at like $8,000. So
That's not bad, honestly.
it's not bad because so my goal was people said you couldn't do it for less than 10. So I'm like, all right, game on. I have some skills, some fabrication skills. I can make stuff. I can cut some costs down that way by avoiding swap kits and everything. But still, like, I didn't think it was going to cost me that much. I thought I was going to do better than that, considering I got such a screaming deal on the donor car and I made so much stuff.
Yeah.
And you always hear about like the $1,500 LS swap, which is like pretty much not real unless you're putting it in what it came out of.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah,
Well-
GM chassis or something like that, where like everything almost works as
Right.
it is, but like
otherwise, there's just too many things. And sure, you could probably do it for less if you like really cobbled some stuff together.
Yeah.
But you
we're not
also
those
have to
people either. So
make it reliable and not
We're-
embarrassing.
We're willing to cut some corners, but
Not all of
not
them.
all of them. So
I think it's worthwhile to bring up the Miata now because we're talking about
It's
LS
also
swaps,
an
and
LS swap.
Yeah.
the E34 behind us has the original engine from that, right? The block.
no, it was going to use that, and then
No, that block's still in my basement.
he got it. He found another deal on another LS.
I
and
see.
That's the one. But does this have those NASCAR heads on it?
No.
Oh,
No, I still have those too.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna put that on that other motor.
All right.
That's for the Audi that I'll eventually get to.
Right.
All right. Well, in that
Always
case, I
planning more
suppose we can
swaps.
save the Miata for a
Yeah.
different time.
Yeah.
But regardless, engine swaps are a lot more involved than most
Yeah.
people make it out to be. When
They're
you're
glossed over. You can do them simply like if you're doing an M50 swap and an E30, which I've done a bunch of. That's probably, in my opinion, the easiest engine swap you can do. It's all factory pieces. Everything fits. BMW at that time period is really good about making everything kind of Lego-like. Like everything is compatible.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I don't know. That's cheap. You can do things cheaply. That's kind of how I started out, and then this is my second LS swap in one of my own things, and I have learned that it snowballs quickly.
Yeah.
How many swaps have you done total?
Like of my own or for other people as well?
Of your own.
Of my own.
More than 5.
Yeah, wow. Must be a lot.
Yeah, it's
You
like
just
6
can't
or
count
7.
higher than that.
6 or 7. 6 or 7 of them that I can think off the top of my head.
What was the most difficult one so far?
I don't know. None of them are. It's not that difficult to swap an engine. Like difficulty wise, it's pretty low. It's just how embarrassed you are later,
I
and
think-
like how well you do it.
I
type
think
of
the
thing.
difficulty thing, people get overwhelmed, right?
Right.
There's just so much that's involved. If you take a step back and you look at everything that needs to be done as a whole, or if you're one of those type of people who like writes it out on a whiteboard and just like, holy shit, it seems hard, but when you just start plugging away at it and picking at the little details, it's really no particular part of a swap is all that difficult.
No, it's just a bunch of steps. So, and going through the steps to like mount the engine and figure out all the different plumbing and everything like that kind of forces you through to get everything else done. Like you can't really just skip a step. It really forces you through the whole process.
I think I'm the only person in the group that hasn't done it. Actual motor swap in a car. But I've been kind of poking around at the idea of the S65 for the
They're
1
cool.
Series.
Yeah, I really like the S65.
So I really like the 1 Series. It's a good car. It's compact, light, and it's just really lacking that sound and that torque and instantaneous V8 everything. Few people have done it already, and I just started poking around Copart probably 3-4 weeks ago, looking at crashed E90s, E92s. What do you guys think of the S65?
I really like it.
E82?
I've also been looking for that same driveline to potentially upgrade the drift car in the future, just because it sounds wild.
Mm-hmm.
But
I like the idea of the swap. I don't like the idea of using the 135 for it. Like, why not use like a 125 or 128 or whatever? Like,
Yeah, no, it's just a matter of something I have.
right, and that's how it happens. Because
you could like fund it by selling the 135, then buying like a blown up or a
Yeah,
less
a
than
blown
ideal
128.
condition 1 Series and going with that, and you can like fund a good portion of it that way.
True.
I just wouldn't use the
But-
135.
When you do that, you kind of end up starting from square one again.
Well, you got to
So-
start from square one, anyways.
Well, no, because there's certain things about that car that are nice. It's not just a piece of crap car I picked up for $3,000 because somebody crashed the front end and I have to rebuild that or whatever. It has a nice interior. It has everything else that I want in the car besides that engine, so I don't have to mess with anything else. It has nice brakes.
Well, I mean,
it
if you
has-
could sell the driveline too for a decent price, that's a good
what
point.
you're saying
but-
really applies to BMWs, in my experience, mostly more than anything else. Is like, even if you were to swap an E36, it almost makes sense to get the M3
Mm.
because the diff's better, The
Right.
axles are stronger. The rear suspension's better.
That's all the
Like,
nickel dime stuff.
all the
that's gonna add
front
up
brakes
over
are
time.
better. Like all those little things make a big difference in the long run. But
That's fair.
versus your normal car, where like they kind of kept things kind of the same. But when you an M and a non-M car, they changed enough where it is pretty much worth it. But
And
yeah, like coming from anything else, it
Yeah.
really doesn't apply. Like,
That's
why
right.
wouldn't I just get
Right.
the cheapest one and then upgrade it?
well, that's why I brought it up before too, because
This
saying
is the cheapest
Legos
one.
basically, right?
Right.
So E30, E36 type of thing.
Yeah.
Same thing kind of works out with E82, E90
Right.
type of things, where the subframe's going to work, the control arms are going to work, the transmissions, everything's going to be kind of in the right area, but it's still not going to be quite there. So you're still going to have to do custom
You need a
headers,
shorter
custom,
drive shaft. You're gonna have to
Yeah.
figure all that stuff out.
but it's not going to be, trying to put an LS in an E34.
Right.
It's not taking American and putting it in European.
And that's something we didn't touch on. Is like the same snowball effect that's happening with this LS swap. Is this was a 6-cylinder car originally, so it was a 525. So that meant it had the smaller diff, had the smaller rear axles. It's got the smaller rear brakes, like all that stuff. I now have to deal with. Right. I dealt with the axles forever ago because I kept breaking them when I put the BMW V8 in, but the diff was still okay. Now it's not going to be okay. So it's all those things that are now making me reinvent the entire car.
Take it that's the diff between my feet right now.
That's yep. There's one there between your feet, and there's one between my feet because I got the gears I want in this diff, and that's the housing I want.
Right.
And I still need to find another diff for the limited slip because the one on your side was supposed to be a limited slip.
Uh-oh.
I ordered it from Copart, showed up very open diff, and then I yelled at them. They're like,
Yeah.
"All right, yeah, don't even bother sending it back."
So you got a free diff, basically.
I got a free diff that's pretty much
What was it?
worthless. other
Was
than
it Copart or was it LKQ?
Copart?
Copart, yeah. Either way, I've had good experience with both of those companies.
Yeah, they've been great.
Yeah.
But yeah, here I am with 2 diffs that
Or
don't work.
Carpart.
Carpart.
It was Carpart, not Copart. Because I didn't think Copart sold parts.
Yeah, you're right. It is Carpart.
Okay, Carpart.
Yeah.
Car dash.
Sorry.
Carpart
Semantics.
just searches databases of
Mhm.
Of scrap yards and
right?
junkyards, yeah.
Right. So it's essentially the junkyard that provided you. Like the 391 diff I bought a couple weeks ago. I wasn't expecting an LSD, but I got one.
Right.
So it's kind of a toss up, but
Yeah.
I really wanted something to weld. So
You're the one person
I
that is
wouldn't-
not happy about having an LSD.
right, exactly.
About being surprised by an LSD.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to hurt the purest feelings though, and weld an LSD because somebody's gonna want it eventually. So hold on to it and see where that goes. But
What's the timeline on this motor swap?
On this swap, I don't like doing timelines the same way I don't like adding up or saying how much I'm into it because it can only be depressing and it really doesn't make a difference in the end.
You're in
So,
no rush though to get.
I'm
it
in
done.
no rush on this
Yeah.
one. I have a couple other cars to play with. I really want to take my time and just when I'm motivated, spend some time on it, make things pretty, not cut corners because I'm trying to hastily get it done for some deadline that really doesn't matter. So, I don't know. That's the answer to that.
Do you guys feel the same way about motor swaps?
I haven't been
You
able
rushed through
to.
your last
I
one,
know.
didn't
I haven't been able to follow that philosophy, although I believe in it. I'm like 100%. Yeah, take your time. Don't rush it. Things will just come out just so much nicer in the end. But I'm definitely a victim of just like feeling it. Like when you're getting close. Like even mounting the engine in. You still have so much to go, but like then you really start kind of getting amped up and excited about it. Oh, you got a package, Amazon. Represent.
Hey, heck yeah.
But sorry, distractions.
Squirrel.
Yeah, off-site distractions, man. But yeah, no, I'm bad about that. I see the light at the end of the tunnel, and I just want to like go and have it done. But on the other side of that, it's kind of giving me things to do now to go back and redo anyways, because we talked about this last week or the week before. Like, by the time you finish something, you're just that much better at it. By the
Right.
time you make a wiring harness, by the time you get done, you're like, wow, the other end of the harness looks like shit. I kind of want to redo it already. So at the same time, like the stuff that I am redoing, I wouldn't, even if I had taken the time up front, it still wouldn't have been as nice as I could do it now. So yeah, I'm going back and I'm redoing a lot of those things too. But yeah, no, I'm bad. I start rushing and it always turns out pretty poorly.
Yeah. I've been through this a couple times, so I'm trying to not rush. But it's the same thing that Will was just saying. Like, there's right now, I have the entire like pre-turbo exhaust system tacked together, ready to go. I need to completely weld it. I'm kind of waiting to make sure I figure out the downpipe and a couple other things before welding it. And I want to start on the passenger side, which is harder to take off, because I know that side's less visible. So when I start on that side,
Yeah.
like I'll get the practice I need to do the more visible side, which is the driver's side.
Right.
So it'll come out nicer.
Mhm.
So I've come to accept that I'm going to be better at it by the time I'm done. Save the parts that are going to be pretty invisible for last, because if I do them first, I'm going to be disappointed.
Timeline's never a good thing to look at, really. It really depends on what you're trying to do with the car, right?
That worked for the drift car. Like,
Yeah.
that was a hard timeline that lost me a summer, but like,
Yeah, that
The
doesn't really
end.
seem to have any downsides to it
no, there's a couple things I would do differently now, but that's always going to happen. So
overall. I mean, there's nothing that you would redo, right?
Again, it comes down
Maybe.
to what kind of build you're doing. So that's full function.
Right.
Everything's function. Strip out everything else. You don't want any conveniences. You don't want comfort for any necessary reason or
right,
anything
there's
like
no
that.
AC. I do have defrost, but otherwise, it's
That's-
just bare bones.
Pretty straightforward. You're starting from almost nothing, and you can pretty much do whatever you want.
Right.
As long as you make it work, it's more or less a go-kart.
Right. The details are what take time. So me trying to keep AC in this car has made the exhaust project that should have been done in a weekend really take probably 3 weeks, because I was taking my time trying to figure it out and make it nice and pretty. And then same, I want to. That'll happen with the wiring harness and everything else too. I want to make it nice and pretty. I want all the functionality. I want all the
OEM
interface
integration.
with integration with the gauges and the cluster and all sorts of various buttons and inputs.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I know everybody knows about the drift car for the most part, but perhaps some of our listeners are new to this and they don't know about the drift car engine swap. Do you want to go over that quickly?
Yeah, so that was the M62 that came out of the C34 into a Mark III Golf. I felt it coming, but I didn't have time to warn anyone that I was about to sneeze.
Oh, so you didn't
And
do
just
it
a little
in the-
background, ECS did a video series called the Summer Drift Series where Mike, Will, Kevin, Andy, and Andrew all built drift cars out of lower end cars, I guess.
Some existing
Existing cars.
Particularly nice, but yeah,
yeah.
Kevin's was an existing drift car that he had a lot of experience with. Will had not drifted
Will's
before,
was
but he
I
had
winner
was a winner beater.
Yeah.
yeah, he had experience with the car.
Yeah.
Andy had plenty of experience with that car as well. He swapped 3 motors in it throughout the summer.
It was kind of hodgepodge of different levels of build.
Mhm. Yeah, we got
from
kind of got the full spectrum there.
taking your baseline drift car to something that's a little more competitive, and then also going from bare bones and straight up to full ridiculous, and then also like the weird car, like Will's car. Nobody wants. Nobody exactly picks out an E39 Touring.
It's
for,
not a
for a
it's
drift
not a
car.
good drift car, and
It's
probably a really poor choice for me to learn how to drift
It
on.
is.
'Cause,
Yeah.
whatever, it's still fun.
I mean,
I like that it's weird.
So back to the Mark
I'm
III.
in the same boat.
Mark
as you.
III was the most ridiculous out of all of them.
Yeah.
And that,
Yeah, for sure. I just always wanted like a little hatchback drift car, because nothing hatchback has been rear-wheel drive in a long time. I like drifting, but I kind of want the weird thing more than I want, just the seat time car. Like for me, it's more about, it's like 3/4 about the build and like 1/4 about driving and having fun with it. So I'm really interested in the fabrication side of things. So that gave me a chance to do something I had been kind of like super back burner, wasn't a priority type of build, but I've been thinking about that for a long time. The
And-
opportunity arose, so I took it.
here you are with a pretty nearly competition level ready V8
Yeah.
Mark III rear-wheel drive drift car.
Right. Not
Turned out
competition
really good.
legal in any way, but it's a ton of fun.
It's well,
For
for
a
like
class,
for
I
your
guess.
like
I don't know.
pro-am stuff
Yeah.
or whatever, it's not really a big deal. They don't take
I moved every suspension part, so that's the
Okay.
trouble. It's like every rule in any
extreme
drifting.
grassroots drifting. That's all
Right,
that
Yeah,
is.
extreme
high level
grassroots.
grassroots.
Yeah, I pigeonholed myself into something that doesn't really exist.
But it's
But-
fun, right? So
Yeah,
that's
it's a ton of fun. That's what I wanted, was something weird, fun, and just kind of. I get tired of seeing like 9 S14s drifting the whole
Yep.
time. I want want something to see something a little bit different. But
So motor mounts, the struts. What
Yep.
other things did you have to change to make that work?
everything. So that car specifically was great. It was really freeing, and I was able to get it done semi-quickly because I didn't care at all. That's one of those great things that's freeing. Like,
You start with
firewall, transmission tunnel, everything's in the way. Don't care. Not a nice car. Doesn't matter. Cut everything out. Put the engine where you want it, and just make stuff happen.
you start with nothing. You have freedom to do anything you want, really.
Right. It's almost too much freedom because at some point you're like, well,
Right.
I
That
have
can
to
be
pick something. I have like
that can
10
be
degrees
really
of freedom. I need
really
something to
intimidating.
limit me. But
people who don't have a lot of experience with that can be very intimidated by too
Yeah.
much freedom.
yes, for sure. Even having done it a couple times, it's still intimidating. There's a couple times where I'm like, well, I have to
Like
just
6 or
pick
7.
something to start with. I have to pick a spot for the steering rack and just run with it. Because otherwise, like, I have to make control arms, I have to make everything else around it, and I need a starting point. So that's what made that kind of tricky. But at the same time, the deadline we were under for that really forced me to just be like, well, I have to get it done today, so I'm going to pick right here. And it kind of forces you through the whole process.
It worked out though.
Yeah, it worked out. Car's a ton of fun.
So just maybe a little more detail about like the parts that you fabricated to make it work, or
Ooh. I don't
That's
know
a
that we
long
have
list.
time for that.
Okay.
It's basically everything.
Yeah. Subframe,
Right.
seat
Yeah.
mounts, tunnel, trans tunnel, floors, radiator
Short
mounts.
of, yeah, fenders, doors, and the roof. I mean, everything else, right?
Yeah, basically the fenders, doors, roof, and like from strut tower to
And then
sort of the firewall.
making a Ford 88 rear end fit in the back.
Right. Yeah. 488. Like, it's basically just body parts sort of hung on.
Right.
Steel tubing.
It's as close as you can get to like body on frame without having actual frame rails.
Right,
It's like,
a full tube chassis
If you
car,
want-
kind of.
If you wanted to go ahead and design the tube chassis, you probably could at this point.
Mhm.
Right. That
Everything
almost,
would fit.
It's like it's almost to the point where that would have been easier to do a full tube chassis car.
Mhm.
It was
Moving a
right
lot
up.
of
It
tubes.
was walking that line of like
Yeah.
a couple more tubes, and it would have made sense to just make it a tube chassis, just hang panels on it type of car.
So custom things, basically everything but the body parts.
wow.
which is going to be custom soon too,
Right.
judging by the parts I see in your backyard.
Yeah. So I've also collected. Someone cut up a Mark III Golf at some point, and I've been meaning to do wide body stuff because I'm not happy with how the rear came out. So I bought the sides of another car and have them hanging out in the backyard right now. So.
It's cool. Would you consider yourself a hoarder?
No.
It's
I would-
organized.
Or it is. I mean, yeah, it's
yeah,
not.
it's tricky because like I want to do as much as I can with the money I have doing car stuff. So to do that on a budget, you kind of have to wait for the right deal to pop up, and sometimes you have to sit on parts. So that's like with the LS swap and this. It was the opportunity came up to buy a Will's motor. I bought that, and then while I was still kind of piecing pieces together for that, then an opportunity arose to grab another engine, which I have intentions of another LS swap significantly further down the road. So trying to plan ahead and find the right deals and just kind of collect pieces when they're affordable
Mhm.
makes a big difference versus if you're trying to get it done by the end of the summer, the pieces you need are available, but they're a lot more expensive.
Mhm.
So finding the guy that's trying to clear out his garage and wants $20 for something that normally is $300, like it's worth it, but now I have to hang on to it. So I have a basement full of car parts for things that I haven't gotten to yet.
There's a few approaches you could take to this, right? Because I'm kind of going down the opposite approach where I've taken money that I probably would have spent on car parts and I've turned it into a garage that I can hoard more car parts in.
Right.
So I'm prepping
You're planning
for
ahead. Yeah. You've planned ahead a bit for the same
Versus-
tactic.
making the most out of a small space like we're in right now and
Right.
really maximizing what you have. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
this is a difficult garage to work in. It's way too small, but I don't know. I feel like I've taken the most advantage I can out of the space available.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of tools that are worthwhile for having for this type of thing. And
yeah, I mean, just looking around, there's a couple of gas tanks for welders. There's a compressor that's fairly large, 80 gallon,
I'm
80,
honestly
100,
not sure.
A lot.
somewhere in there, a lot. There's
Big
a
fella.
blast cabinet. We have a welding table with a fold down.
Yeah, finger
brake.
brake.
Yeah. You got
The device,
your
I got
press.
the press, the belt sander, like everything. I belted the bolted the belt sander to the wall so it takes up less space. It's all those type of things when you're jammed in a small area like this that really you have to do what you can. But it's one of those things, like, you always see people like, oh, I wish I could, if I had the space, I'd do what you want to do. I'm like, well, I mean,
He doesn't have any
I don't
space,
have the
people.
space. So if you wanted
Yeah.
to do it, you'd do it.
It's a matter of making
you
what
can
you
make it
have
work.
work.
Yeah, it's not counting on the excuses of, if I had the tools you have, I'm like, well,
Right.
I
So-
didn't start
so
with the tools I
You're
have.
doing an engine swap in a 20 by 20 garage, maybe.
Yeah, it's honestly probably 22 by 20.
And you pretty much have everything you need here.
Yeah, I'm looking at buying a bigger car trailer than this garage. So
Square footage wise.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a little depressing, but you
on
can
the-
make it happen.
On the subject of garages, you just built a new one, Kev. Do you want to talk about that? What you're putting in it? What your plans are for it?
I think we'll cover that when we do our offsite
go
there,
there.
but
Okay.
just touch on it. Yeah, instead of spending money on car parts or shells to build on,
You sold a car to start it, right?
yeah, I did. I sold my S4. They kicked off about 25% of the project, probably.
You need
So-
that start.
Yeah. you
Yeah,
gotta
that's
I
jump
really
in.
needed that jump to start saving money, and now we have a 30 by 40 pole barn.
Mark 7 is coming by. I hear him every day.
Such Volkswagens, man.
Volkswagens. God, it sounds so bad.
So we'll spend some time in there. I still have a ton of work to do on that, but it's basically setting the stage for whatever my next build ends up being. And at this point, I'm at a huge toss-up on what to actually do. I don't know if I want to do an LS swap. I don't know if I want to work on the S65 thing in the 1 Series. I don't know if I want to do some old 80s boxy grassroots drift build or something. I really don't know what I'm going to do at this point, but I'm setting the stage.
It's just whatever pops up on Craigslist next, really.
Right, exactly.
I mean,
Whatever's
it's-
in the best shape for the cheapest amount, that's the weirdest. That's kind of the three
Right.
criteria for Craigslist searching.
Will, how
What?
about your? Oh, you.
I mean, it's just a can of worms. I don't know where it's going. I just know that it's headed in the right direction to have all the basic tools and amenities I need to be able to build something that I've been kind of putting on hold because I didn't have the garage space or whatever it is, or the tools compact as Mike. That I was willing to give up my daily parking garage for a full fab shop. So
Right. Yeah, I've never parked anything that I drive in here or in a garage in general.
I like parking my nice car in a garage.
I would love to, but I've never had the
not willing to
opportunity
sacrifice. Even if you did have the space, I don't know that you'd sacrifice it. Like,
Well, it's just because
you'd have to have a lot
it's
of
the toss up.
space.
Because if I'm grinding and welding and stuff, I don't want the car
Right.
I'm going to be driving in there.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Grinder dust is the worst.
it is the worst. That's why my car looks like crap right now. And it used
Mine
never
also
looked
looks
really
like crap.
nice,
It's
but-
bad. I also got overspray on it the other day, which I'm really sad about.
I'll try to help you polish it up when it gets out of here.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm thinking like the Unimog. It probably fits right in
The
that
Unimog's
spot right
normally
there.
in here.
Oh, it sits in here.
It's inside. It's normally on
Holy
that
shit.
side, damn near touching the wall.
Oh, so
And then
that's a
this car on
very
this side.
opposite statement to what you just said about your nice cars.
Because I made one nice thing ever, and it was a tremendous mistake because
So
it
the
just took
Unimog-
up my garage to
Tremendous,
space.
both
The Unimog-
figuratively and literally.
Yeah, it's just
Surprisingly fits in here, and you still have some space to work with the windshield.
if I'm
folded
very
down.
carefully. Yeah, I have to fold the windshield on the top, and then the steering wheel's like 3 inches from the doorway on the way in. I have to duck as I come by, and then I make sure the mirror touches the wall on that side, and then the side panel of the bed touches where I have my hardware right now.
It's really not as big as it looks.
No, honestly, the E34 takes up more
It's just
space
tall.
than the
Yeah.
Unimog does
Hmm.
because you have
Not a
the
lot to
space
it.
in between the wheels, like the tiny 4-wheeler and 3-wheeler that are outside right now. I put in between the wheels or underneath the Unimog, and you can do a lot with the space you have,
Yeah.
but it definitely forces you to be diligent about cleaning up after yourself,
Oh,
putting
yeah.
things away, all that type of thing, because you really can't leave a mess out and get something done.
Mhm.
It's tricky.
Will, do you want to hit on your garage at all? I know we're gonna do one
Yeah.
there, but
Yeah, we'll
just-
get there. I mean, it is a little bit larger than Mike's. I don't know about how much. I'm not good judging dimensions and
I
all
just
that
think
stuff.
yours
but-
is 24 by 24.
okay.
Yeah.
Just
I'd go with that. That would make sense. Yeah, kind of similar situation. I've been acquiring tools and things since I've lived here and kind of gone down the same rabbit hole of trying to make them functionable, accessible, and compact. So that's always a fun game to play. Put everything on casters so you can move it around or mount it to the wall or hang it from the ceiling or whatever. So Yeah, kind of working in the same situation. Only one car ever gets parked in the garage. You use the rest of the area for working space, and yeah.
You recently built a tire rack or something. I think I saw on Instagram.
Oh yeah. Well, since the drift series started, I've started accumulating sets of wheels and tires. So I think I have at least 2 sets of wheels for all 3 of my cars. So, and spare tires for everything. So that was taking up a lot of space. It was actually, I was storing tires like inside in the basement, and that was like a real pain in the ass.
That's what I'm doing.
That's what I'm doing currently.
So,
Entire
I
basement's
figured,
full of tires.
you follow you go on the forums, whatever, Garage Journal and things like that, and then you see people laying out stuff all nice. And I'm like, well, I'm not using the space over here. So I threw out some stuff and, went to Home Depot, grabbed some wood, and spent like, $15 and built a rack that holds 6 sets of wheels. So that helped a lot.
Yeah. If anyone's looking for inspiration on garage builds, go to garagejournal.com forums.
Yeah, dig around in there for a while. It'll keep you busy.
It really forces you into that mindset of like, there's people out there trying to do the most of what they can neatly.
Yeah,
and it's very impressive.
I moved I had a ridiculous amount of stuff, especially when I moved out here. And as I've acquired more tools and more parts and things like that, I really had to go back through and figure out all right, what am I keeping? Because it was just getting insane. I didn't have room to store anything, and so threw a lot of stuff out, a lot of parts that I was like, I could use this for something someday. I don't know what, but it's a dangerous game to play. So.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. There's plenty of things I brought here that I've thrown out that I'm like, why did I even bother?
I went through the effort of moving that, 10 hours away, 600 miles, whatever it is, and then I just threw it away eventually. It's stupid. But
Yep. I did that with a car.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The E30.
Yeah, the E30 I brought here.
Cool, guys. Well, any other notes on motor swaps or garage size?
I feel like we could go on forever, but
I think we will go on about that for
more
another
will
2 episodes probably. So,
Yeah.
But
yeah,
All right.
it's a great feeler on that.
Cool. Well, Mike, thanks for having us in your garage, and
Anytime.
catch us on the next episode.
Yeah.